Hello and welcome to a different format for our Sisters Assembled.
Yeah.
So if you guys had not caught some of our recent episodes about Agatha, you may be wondering why you're seeing us on video and why this episode for Venom, The Last Dance, is so short. Well, we made a boo-boo and we were so focused on how we were going to balance both Agatha episode 7 and our reactions to The Last Dance, and because they come out back to back, basically, at least the way we're seeing it. And we forgot to think about there's a little something that we usually do before a movie called predictions. So this is our way of giving you the quick hits, basically, for our thoughts on Venom: The Last Dance before we head into theaters literally in just a couple of days. So with that being said, we're going to dive right in, but thanks for joining us and for your patience as we are trying to rectify this little mistake that we made in scheduling. So appreciate it. And now over to Kate.
Also gonna just say we are gonna mess up live.
Yeah,
I'm just gonna put that out there.
I'm normally editing all of the weird stuff or things that we like mess up and can't talk. You guys get to hear a pretty polished version of us. This is raw, friends. So This is what it actually sounds like when we record, and why I get to take off 10 minutes off of our recordings every week, because there's a lot of interesting, inability to speak that happens throughout the course of us trying to record an episode.
Yes, there is. So you guys get to see all that today. Isn't that exciting? But let's get into Venom. What we decide to do, because we are going to do a condensed version of the predictions, is we're going to try and hit like the three main topics that we feel we've gathered from the trailers. So we're going to get right into the first one, which is the symbiote as a whole and Venom's planet. Because if you watch any of the trailers, it seems pretty much wrapped around symbiotes and Venom's planet. So that is kind of the bigger overarching topic. I don't even know where to start with that, though, because what?
Yeah, it's been so long since I've seen the first one, but don't we see him and I think one other one or a couple of other ones, right? Like other symbiotes arrive on Earth via like a asteroid or something.
At least Venom does. I don't know, because I know Carnage is made from him, and so is Toxin.
Yes, but remember the first movie, that scientist guy? Okay.
That's the problem.
Well, the one thing I do remember about the first movie, because again, it's been a hot minute, is that scientist guy actually does also match up or, whatever, bond with a symbiote. So he actually ends up fighting a symbiote in the first one. So there are multiple, I don't know if you can call them a symbiote without the host, but there's multiple of Venom's species that kind of arrive. So I think that's kind of like, we have to take it all the way back there, because that's where they're arriving from, is their planet. And I think what's interesting, knowing that this is the last one, Tom Hardy said he's out, he's done after this, is that we're kind of coming full circle. Right now we're getting a deeper understanding of potentially why Venom and those other symbiotes came. Now, they seem to be antagonistic towards one another, so maybe they had different motivations, but at least we're getting to see why Venom himself came. He doesn't seem, and we'll talk about Knull, during this episode, I promise, but he doesn't seem to be a huge fan of Knull and his creator. So I think it's very nice from a parallel and kind of circular narrative to go back to the beginning and understand really what are the origins of this character that we've now watched for 2 movies. We kind of love. He and Eddie have this kind of beautiful friendship, growing and building. And I think one of the featurettes, they were even talking about their relationship, and how they're not only in a symbiotic relationship because it's host and parasite, essentially, but it's also that they are in a friendship, in a symbiotic friendship. There's give and take and things like that. So that's kind of my immediate thought when I think about the plan, is that we're going all the way back to why did he come here and why did this trilogy start in the first place?
Yeah, not just Venom, right? Because now we're seeing in the trailer for the third movie, they're all coming. They're all fleeing to Earth. So whatever made Venom and the initial few come down to Earth or come over or wherever they came from whatever direction, clearly the rest of them are following because of Knull and whatever he's doing on their planet. So it is kind of interesting to see that we are getting that connection, to your point, circling back pretty much to the very first movie, which I like. I think it's a good thing to do, especially in a trilogy. Like, let's be real, we need to cap them off in some way. But I think, and I don't want to get too far down this road, but I do feel like it would be remiss to not discuss the fact that we have the symbiote. We have multiple symbiotes landing. We have a couple already on Earth. We know Toxin's already in. I believe he was the policeman or like detective from the second movie. I don't know. I watched Carnage once. Yeah,
I think so.
That was a one-time viewing. But
same.
But
I mean,
I think, yeah, right. I think we do need to talk though about a piece of Venom was left in 616. The trailers look like they've confirmed that it has been removed. It has been taken away. But where do we go from here? Because again, we have all these symbiotes landing in, and I wrote it down. They're calling it either Universe 688 or 688B. That's Eddie's. Supposedly, it's also the same as Madam Web's, but okay,
that's a choice. That's a choice,
right. Regardless, we have all these symbiotes landing in this universe. Where are we going? Because I want to believe Sony has direction with the symbiotes as a whole. And if this is it, you've said it, Eddie's done, or Tom's done playing Eddie. What do we do? Because are you really going to just tell me you made a Venom trilogy that's going nowhere?
Yeah, I think it all really comes back to the symbiote suit that he left, right? I think this entire trilogy is setting up, Spider-Man taking on the dark suit and all of that, we saw play out in Tobey's third movie, unfortunately not being the focus. I hope that is the focus when Tom gets to do it, because it is such an interesting and important storyline to the character.
For sure.
But I think what will be important, and what I have a question about to all of what you just said, is how did that guy, Chiwetel Ejiofor's character, I don't know what his character's name is. Also, side note, I love Chiwetel Ejiofor, but like, why are we casting people who are already in the MCU? Y'all know how I feel about that. I'm really frustrated. I mean, I think he's a great actor and I love him, and I am excited to see him get roles, just like not roles that conflict with roles he's already had. Anyway, yeah. Side note, soapbox done, put away. But when Chiwetel's character, takes that piece of the symbiote, how does he get to 616? Like, if he is not from 616, why are we all assuming that that's where he is? I actually think that he is finding pieces that Eddie is just like low-key leaving around, because Eddie's a little bit of a mess. Like, he's a lovable mess, but that's who he is. That's his character, right?
Yeah.
I think low-key he might be leaving little pieces of Venom around and like not knowing it, and they're picking it up, and that's how they're picking up his trail. I don't actually think it's 616. I feel like I read somewhere that little piece is actually misleading and meant to mislead, because if you think about it from a logical standpoint, no offense, but I don't know how the US government is suddenly like able to go into different universes and cross the multiverse in this other, what did you say, 638B or 608B?
688.
Okay, I was not close at all. 688.
You got the 6. I'll give you that.
I got a 6 and an 8, so I was like 66% of the way there. What'd you say? 688?
688 or 688B.
I don't know much about the government of 688, but if it's anything like the government in 616, they're not really totally tracking on the multiverse yet. Maybe Sword is, but that's pretty much the extent of it. So how do we suddenly think that he's getting into 616? I think that if this trilogy is going to have a purpose, like you were saying, other than, we love Tom Hardy and he's entertaining, maybe it is, we are going to introduce symbiotes. Now that's already happened. Now whatever's going to happen in 688, it kind of closes us out, finishes the story, but then Venom is able to live on. Are pieces of Venom able to have memories of the larger version if they're not attached? Like, is that piece of Venom going to remember what happens in this film when he, bonds with Peter Parker? I don't know. That's a whole other conversation to have, but that's a long way of saying I think this whole thing is setting up dark suited Peter Parker and dark suited Spider-Man in 616.
I don't disagree. I think I disagree on how we get there, because I struggle with saying it was never 616 or whatever, because your point's fair. The whole government thing, fair. I don't know how they're traveling the universe either. But I also do know that he jumped into 616, and I know he jumped back out of 616. And maybe, to your point, maybe I'm misreading everything. I've been misled. But it seemed to me the bar he was in when he was in Mexico was, and where he left his piece of symbiote was 616. And then we see him fade out of that exact spot as well. Whatever, regardless, I agree it's setting up Peter Parker as Spider-Man. I actually am going to go a direction nobody wants me to go, but I'm thinking it's Secret Wars because, and I'm shocked didn't say this because you read the comic. This is the origin of Venom in the comics. Secret Wars is the origin initially. Pretty much, and go ahead if I say this wrong, but pretty much from my understanding is Peter Parker, while dealing with everything, the events of Secret Wars and Battle World and everything else going on, comes back to his new universe, whatever that even looks like at that point, and brings a piece of Venom back with him. That's the symbiote. The symbiote comes with him, and that's the start of the black suit. Am I wrong?
I want to clarify two things. One, in my theory, I do agree that the symbiote is in 616. What I'm saying is Chiwetel's character is not in 616.
Oh, so, yes, I agree.
Yeah, so I just want to clarify that because I do think that Eddie, and I know Eddie made the jump then came back. That's why I think that piece still remains in 616 because I don't know how Chiwetel and his government organization that he works for, or paragovernment, whatever it is, made it over. That's why I think that is setting up Tom in 616. Fair. I agree. It could be Secret Wars. I do want to clarify that the Secret Wars, because there's two. The Secret Wars that this happens in, where the dark suited Spider-Man, the Venom symbiote, is introduced, is actually the 1980 version, where they are likely adapting the 2017 version. So two different versions with two different comic runs with the same name. Will they pull elements from the 1980 version in into 2017? I definitely think so. I think if they're going to pay homage to the original, Secret Wars, that is the perfect way to do it. It's probably one of the most iconic things to come out of it. But I just want to clarify that we're likely not going to see that version of Battle World and like that storyline adapted in full, more so than we're going to see the 2017 version with Doom and all of that. That seems to be the general focus of, or the version of Secret Wars that's going to be adapted for the screen.
Yeah, and I don't disagree. I just wanted to kind of spread the idea of Venom comes from Secret Wars. If we're looking for the little, I always say it's like a caveat, or it's also like a little way out. I hate saying it, but it really is. Like, it's like, well, Secret Wars is always the possibility and always the answer. Again, you have hundreds looking of symbiotes coming to one universe. Something has to give. But I want to get away from this because we could spend forever on it. We could probably do our own episode, and maybe we will after the movie. Maybe it'll be a worthwhile talking point, unlike Madam Web, when we plan to have episodes after and there was nothing to discuss. Oops. Either way, I want to move on. And you kind of started to talk about Eddie and Venom and everything, but this is the breakup of Eddie and Venom. Tom Hardy's done. T said it already. So what does this mean? I mean, the trailers have very clearly pointed out that the two of them cannot stay together for the sake of this universe. So Venom is a huge point to whatever story is going to be told, which obviously that makes sense. It's his movie. But it seems that between his planet and Knull and everything else, it all rests on him specifically.
Yeah. The symbiote idea in the comics is complicated. We'll get to Knull. He is our kind of third topic of the day. So I'll give you a 30,000 foot look into what I understood of Knull. But that is just a level of complication that is a lot. So I'm not even sure that from my basic research, I can even try to distill why Eddie and Venom and their very honestly is grown to be quite pleasant bonding is such a problem for the symbiotes. I don't know what Knull's motivation is in this film, other than to get Venom back, but I'm not sure what makes Venom so special. That's something that I'm actually really looking forward to understanding in the film, because when we get to Knull, we'll talk about King in Black and how, it ties into, actually, you know what, let's just do it now. Let's just do it. King in Black is a very prominent storyline with Knull. If you have been paying attention to our Sister Scoops and that's something that you enjoy listening to, you might remember the name King in Black we brought up a couple of weeks ago because it is the rumored title of Spider-Man 4. And so if you're thinking, all right, if we're doing King in Black, then now we've got Knull on the table, right? And this is kind of his introduction. So that's why I'm so focused on what his motivation is and why Venom is so special, because maybe this means he will follow that Venom symbiote to other universes if he feels like he needs to. If Venom doesn't survive, like say Eddie survives, but I'm talking they separate and Venom is destroyed, the actual black goop, whatever he actually is. I'm not even sure what you can classify his species as, but the goop that is Venom, lovingly, I say that lovingly because I actually think he's a very funny character, but the goop, say the goop doesn't survive, Eddie does survive. The only living piece of Venom then will be the version in 616. And now suddenly you're opening the door for Knull to come in and adapt that King in Black storyline. We will potentially, after Secret Wars, then have, our Peter Parker in the black suit. And now you're setting up a conflict and you're starting to see how things, could ladder back or ladder into one another. And you're seeing an evolution. So that's just something to keep in mind as well when we're talking about Eddie and Venom, knowing that's coming to an end. What is next kind of for the symbiote? Because I think the symbiote will continue on past, its bonding with Eddie.
I like that. And I really struggle because we went into Madam Web and I was like, guys, I think Sony might be figuring it out. Like, I think this
they might have a plan.
Yeah, like I think I'm going to find out that they actually knew what they were doing and everything's going to fall together. Clearly, that did not happen. But everything you're saying right now makes sense. And I could see the pieces. I could see the domino effect. And other than Spider-Verse or into like all the Spider-Verse, into Beyond, everything else, whatever
across.
else they are, all the other verbs across. Yeah. Across
Adverbs,
into,
actually, I think.
Yeah, whatever it is. I hate when they do this. But these are my, these are the bane of my existence. Homecoming and all those are the bane of yours.
Yes,
but
yes.
Regardless, Venom itself has been arguably one of the more profitable franchises or just movies in general. I mean, the first one was extremely well received.
Yeah.
Second one struggled, but it came off the first one, so you still got the views. Yeah. And the third one, I think, is still going to do fairly well. I mean, you have the events of No Way Home. You have obviously still the ending of Carnage. You still have the fact that it's the end of a trilogy. So I think people already are just going to go watch it. I think because it's the end of a trilogy, you're going to hit the point where, what do I always say? A good trilogy, the hero loses something. I would argue who's the hero, Venom or, Eddie. I don't know. It's technically named after Venom, but does Venom lose his life or does Eddie lose Venom? I think that's the right way to go. And to your point, I see how Knull would then track down these different symbiotes. Boom, right into 616. There it is. It's easy. It takes off this Venom because you asked the great question of like, would that little piece remember all of that? I think we've learned about the hive mind. I think it exists. I don't think that symbiote's going to sit there and be like, here's my entire life with Eddie Brock in another universe. Like, I don't think that's happening. But I think it helps us feel like we didn't just waste, well, what was the last one? 2017, 2018. So like almost like 5-6 years of our lives watching this now, three movies, the trilogy, makes us feel like we have a story. And the symbiote has a story. Plus, if you're going to hint at Knull in this movie, because it's been said, guys, he's not actually necessarily going to make a full appearance. Like,
I don't think he will.
No, he's going to be Thanos, essentially, from the first Avengers. I think somebody is there to do his bidding, but he is going to be not revealed at the end, but very similar to Thanos, the kind of like, okay, here I am, purple grape kind of moment. I think that's what we're having. And so there you go, right into Spider-Man 4. I think it sets up, but I'm so weary to say it.
I know. Because we've been burned before.
We have, and I thought they had it. And so I'm hoping, and my whole little spiel about this being one of the bigger franchises rests on the fact that I'm like, you you're doing kind of okay with these. So tell me you have a reason for making them, and tell me that you have a reason you're going out of your way to make an anti-hero Venom to tell a whole story when you are still holding on with everything you've got to your rights to Spider-Man and to Tom Holland.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, to your point, this is really the only one that they've done that's even had any mild amount of success, right? I mean, Morbius is memed. It's so bad. I forgot what it was until like a few moments ago when it popped into my head and I like had flashbacks. And then obviously you mentioned Madam Web just took the internet by storm in the absolute wrong way. I mean, so good, so entertaining, but also like not the film itself.
No.
So, and you know, and then you have Craven at the end of the year, which can Aaron Taylor Johnson save that? I'm not sure. I mean, he's beautiful, so I'm going to enjoy it anyway.
That's
but like,
what I was going to say. They're banking on the fact that we're all going to show up just because it's Aaron Taylor Johnson. And I get it. But like, that is what they're depending on. Yes. That's what they're depending on, though.
But like, is the quality of the film going to be there? I don't know. You know, it really depends to me. Like, Venom 3 is going to set the tone for how excited I am for Craven, because if this is well done, maybe they're back on track, right? Maybe Madam Web was like a blip. Maybe Morbius was a blip. Because if you do well relatively well in the 3 Venoms, obviously the second one, but like, if you do relatively well with the 3 Venoms and Craven, now you've got like, you know, a 60% win rate. Like, your percentage is going a little bit up. So I, as the eternal optimist on this show and the one who likes to give Sony a fairer shake than Kate, I will say I am hopeful. I'm hopeful that they are turning the ship around, that they do maybe have a plan, and maybe it just hasn't been revealed to us in Madam Web like we thought they really should, because that was low-hanging fruit and that was an odd choice. But whatever, maybe there is a reason. And I think if they, you know, even the rest of these movies aside, if they don't matter, whatever, but if they make the Venom trilogy matter, that gives them a little bit of credence in my book. And I'm like, all right, cool. Like, at least you made this one, you made a successful trilogy. Or you successfully made a trilogy. That's, you know, a feat. Good job. But then on top of that, if you were able to tie it in a meaningful way to the larger universe and show that you're not just out here making random movies, but you're actually trying to do something narratively meaningful. All right, Sony, let's play ball. Let's talk about it.
Yeah, and that's why I was saying, like, give me a reason to care. Because I know, and we've said this before, but you've been piggybacking off of Marvel fans this whole time. You are fighting for your life because you've only got Spider-Man. Like, that is what you're doing. And so give me a reason to be excited to go see the movie. I love the first Venom.
It's a good movie.
I still remember seeing that. It was before my boyfriend and I even started dating. Like, we went and saw that together. And we've been together for 6 years now. Like, I remember that movie, and it's very like buried into my brain for that reason. But like, I remember it. Carnage, for better or worse, I remember it. Like, I don't remember Morbius. I don't really know what happened in that movie, but it's fine. At the end of the day, I want to have a reason to care. This is your closest movie to do that you've made at this point, especially to Spider-Man himself, because it's very, very difficult, in my opinion, to talk about Spider-Man and not at some point or another talk about the flip of the coin and his dark side, which is Venom and is exasperated by the symbiote of Venom. So I want to care. I think you told all of us how to set this up. Sony, I hope you're doing it. I hope that's what we're going to find out. I've heard there is 2 end credit scenes. We now normally do predict them. So I'm just going to quick say.
I forgot.
I know you did. I did too, until I started talking. And then I was like, oh, crap. We definitely need to do that really quick.
Oh, man.
I'm going to assume one of them's Knull.
Yep.
And maybe they're going to shock us and pull another Carnage one and end up doing something with 616. Have some sort of reveal. Otherwise, I think they're going to do something stupid and it's going to be multiversal. It's going to be like the Morbius one. I do. Or it maybe Craven.
I forgot about that one. That one was bad. Okay.
Yeah.
I am going to add a little bit of detail to your Knull one, because I do think, one, they've already shown Knull like a side profile in the trailer. So having him in an end credit scene is not going to cut it. I think we're going to see him in the movie, but I do not think he is going to actually physically make it to Venom's Earth. I don't think so.
Okay.
However, I can see the end credit scene being our Venom. Say that we go with my theory. Our Venom's destroyed. Now Knull is saying, all right, cool, now I gotta go here. Like there's a piece of him still alive, and now I need to go here to go get him. Or he, makes it onto, I don't know that, maybe he makes it onto 616. That's a little bit more of a stretch, but that is a possibility I think we need to be prepared for. The second one is a little bit stuck. Like, I have a feeling that it is going to tie into one of their other films because I think they are, in their own convoluted way, I think they're trying to tie their films together, right? Like we saw that with the Morbius one that is still mind-boggling. Like it's still, I just choose to forget it because y'all know I am the keeper of the rules of the multiverse and it broke all of them.
Yeah.
So like, whatever. I think that they're going to pull another one of those. I do, because I think they're trying to make an effort to make it a concerted, what do they call it? The Sony Spider-Man universe or the Spider universe or something.
I call it the Sonyverse, but it definitely is not what they call it.
No, it's the SSU, but I think it's like the Sony Spider-Man universe is like the quote unquote official title. Don't even.
The fact that nobody calls it that, because I don't think anybody realizes that's the name.
No, because it's like all of the like villains that like the MCU hasn't taken to adapt, but whatever. Anyway, so I do think it's going to be their attempt to kind of bridge these different, I don't even know if you can call them franchises because most of them are single films at this point, but
they're just properties.
Yeah. Anyway, trying to connect the films that they've put out. I mean, look, you're going to hate this. You're going to absolutely hate it, but it just popped into my head and here we go. If this is the Madam Web universe and that took place in the early 2000s, maybe we get an aged up Madam Web. Or we see one of the girls pop in, again, aged up, now in modern day, and that's how they start to do it. I actually think that I'm going to put my stake in the sand there. That's my second. I talked myself into it. That's my second one.
See, I actually think there's a better chance it's going to be anybody else than Madam.
That's just what you want. That's not even a prediction. That's just what you want.
No. I really don't. I mean, I understand this movie was filmed. I do, but like there is the ability to go back, especially end credit scenes. Like they don't necessarily take a lot. If they're any sort of smart, they saw the reception that movie got in February. Yeah. And they would not try to do that, especially with the time jump that has to happen. I think you actually have a better chance. That's what I'm saying. I think you have a better chance of it being anybody else or something towards Kraven.
I honestly think they're going to double down. I really do. That's what my gut is saying. They're going to double down on Madam Web.
I don't think... I feel like because Kraven's coming out so quickly after, in comparison, I think there's a good chance it's Kraven. And Kraven's been moved a lot. So there's actually a really good chance it's Kraven because of that.
I don't know.
I would just think...
Look, if it's a time jump too, it doesn't even need to be Dakota because we all know Dakota wants nothing to do with that. So...
No, it's going to be Vulture.
Just saying.
It'll be Vulture and Morbius.
Is he going to be like the new Stan Lee of the Sonyverse?
No, I think
Vulture just shows up in everything.
They're collecting their Infinity Stones, and now you're going to have them jump to their universe, and this is where we're going to be.
No, I don't even put that in the universe. I'm over it. Like,
if you want to say stupid things Sony might do, I have a list, and that's one of them.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. They pull some shenanigans, and they like to just really take the multiverse rulebook that we know the MCU plays fast and loose with anyway.
Yeah,
but at least the Sonyverse sets it on. Well, yeah, the Sonyverse sets it on fire and says, "Ha! You have a rulebook.
At least like Marvel owns the rulebook. Like Sony doesn't even own it. They just use it, and they don't even use it right.
No, they like use it as kindling.
I can do whatever I want with it too. Like.
Yeah. Either way, in our reactions episode, you're probably just going to hear us complain about whatever they do because it's probably not going to be logical and it's probably just going to hurt my brain. So I might actually cry out of frustration. Who knows? Tune in. But
I really am excited though. Like I really hope they don't.
Yeah. I mean, I hope it is intentional and smart and connective and meaningful and not whatever slapstick BS they gave us at the end of Morbius, because that was just tragic. Just tragic.
Agreed.
But on that note, we are going to call it because we are literally going to see this film in like less than 48 hours. So we are Really?
Go
We're actually
us.
genuinely, I know, we're actually genuinely excited, I think. You know, there's a level of excitement. Is it MCU level excitement? Like, no, obviously. But there is the excitement of going to the theater and going and watching a movie. And
not you
Tom
simplifying
Hardy,
it to it just being a movie-going experience.
Tom Hardy will be there, and that, you know, gives it a level of credibility.
True.
And, you know, they are coming on the back of one very successful and one relatively successful film. So of all of the Sonyverse films that we're going to watch this year, this is the one I am least nervous about not liking.
Yeah.
So, on that note, please make sure that you are tuning in because we are going to have a lot of content this week. Katie will get into it in a second, but there's a lot going on in the Marvel and Marvel adjacent world this week. It's a big, big week. So make sure that you're following right here on YouTube or on your podcast platform of choice, checking out the website. And, you know, if you're so inclined and you like the show, you can also support us on Buy Me a Coffee. We would appreciate that, but no pressure. Just saying.
Yeah, I mean, I like coffee, so maybe if you want to, I would love it. But you guys can be following us also here on YouTube, subscribe, but on all our other socials, which will be linked in the show notes below. And as T kind of set up, we do have Venom coming out in less than 48 hours, technically a little bit more if you're not seeing it early showings on Thursday. Opening weekend is 72 hours away. And so we're very excited for that. But we also have Agatha episode 7, which will be coming out by the time you'll listen to this today. So make sure you guys are watching that. We've been loving Agatha. We're hoping that's going to be awesome as well. And then just to kind of give you guys the forecast, next week is Agatha series 8-9 finale. Big one. We're going to see what happens. And we'll also be having our reactions to Venom, whatever that looks like, for next week as well. So a lot going on. Please, please, please keep up with Marvel because it's been crazy. I mean, they just had New York Comic Con too. A lot is happening in the world of Marvel, in the world of comic books. So keep up with Marvel content because, as always, Marvel just blew your mind. So let's talk about it.